Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here once again with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, how are you doing tonight, mate?
Mate, very, very good. And it feels nice to say that again because the last two times we've come on, it hasn't, well, the last three, if you have, include that little reaction video that we did, haven't been as quite as happy coming on the podcast as I'd like to be. But tonight, no such problem, mate. Dreamland yet again.
And listen, obviously, Aston Villa 3, Arsenal 0 at the Emirates. Completely deserved performance, I think we must say, right at the top of the podcast. Obviously, last season, going to the Emirates, we felt quite hard done by leaving away, on the back of a defeat. We lost that game 3-2. I think we were ultimately the architects of our own downfall there. But this time, Villa have managed to get rid of the mistakes that were in that game, get rid of the mistakes that were in the Southampton and Leeds game. And we saw a really complete performance across both halves. In the first game, obviously, Dan, straight away, John McGinn scores. I've tweeted about it. You've tweeted about it from the account. It seemed like a totally legitimate goal. But in today's age, obviously, we do have VAR to deal with. And especially if you've been watching all the other Premier League games today, you'll know that there's been 2 or 3 questionable decisions throughout those games. And this was one of them. It was, for me, a legitimate goal, ruled out. But Dan, first of all, give me your thoughts on that, because obviously after that, things get better. So let's open up with the one.
Yeah, let's get this out of the way, mate. Yeah, well, look, it was one of those where, and I tweeted this myself, and I said that I've said this on podcasts previously, whereby we needed to start quickly in that game.
Yeah,
and we had to. Because that we didn't do it against Leeds and we didn't do it against Southampton and we didn't do it against Leicester, and we got away with it in that game, and we sort of managed to grind out a victory. But in both halves, and we'll come on to the second half a little later, we came flying out the traps. And that was really impressive to see, because it's been a long time since we did that. And start, the Liverpool game is, as I said, a bit of a caveat, and that's a footballing anomaly of all kinds. But we came flying out the traps today, 45 seconds. It was a great goal. Grealish feeds McGinn, who shrugs off Lacazette, and with his left foot, it's an absolute cannon past Leno. I didn't see, the shot was so quick. I didn't even see Barkley in the frame. Like, the ball was just literally left McGinn's foot and it was in the net. And look, it's one of those whereby Gary Neville actually said something similar in the commentary for the Liverpool Man City game, for the handball on Joe Gomez, whereby he said he doesn't think it's a handball. Like, he never thought that was a handball. But if you're looking at it with your 2020 specs on, like, it is. Like, in today's footballing day and age, it's a penalty. And it's one of those whereby McGinn's goal is a fair and square goal. But, like, if you're looking at it to the 11th degree with all this offside, and, like, Barkley is in an offside position, that can't be debated. I don't think he's fully obstructing Leno's view, but probably partially. Regardless, he's not going to save it. Leno, you could have 2 Lenos in that goal and it's still a goal from McGinn. But yeah, you can, as you say, looking at it with your 2020-21 season specs on, you can see why it's been ruled out. But it was so harsh, wasn't it, mate? And it was such a great goal as well.
It was. That's the thing as well. Like, to come off the Southampton game where we've lost in a disappointing manner, but we managed to come back in that second half and have a bit of self-respect, leaving the pitch there, scoring the 3 goals in that half. We instantly carried that performance over into this next game, and straight away you're setting the tone. 43 seconds and we've gone 1-0 up with an absolute rocket. The thing for me is Leno does watch the track, like the flight of the ball. So he clearly, his whilst Barkley was perhaps obstructing his vision on his left-hand side, where John McGinn is and the ball is, he has a perfect sight of that. And the argument, listen, I was Jack Cudworth, who, former writer, replied to me saying he's obstructing his view. But I'm sorry, if McGinn is putting that on the other side, then it's going straight in Barkley's face anyway. So it doesn't matter. Like, the only way John McGinn scores is doing exactly what he did, and there's no stopping it from Leno. But regardless of that, Arsenal probably hold a bit of a different challenge for Villa coming into this game, Dan, because we spoke about it in the preview how important Thomas Partey is and was for Arsenal, not only in the game against Manchester United, but since he's come in, he's revolutionised the game. He's this unique box-to-box midfielder who has pretty much all of the attributes you want your midfielder to have. I want to liken him to Yaya Toure in that sense, because a lot of people would probably have Partey as a 6, but the way he is so elegant and skillful on the ball and likes to get forward, which we saw plenty of in the first half. You said last week, Dan, that the battle was going to be won in the midfield. And the first half, I'd say it was fairly even, 50-50. Partey was he was just doing himself, really. Anyone who has watched Atletico Madrid over the past few years knows what he's about. And I thought he put himself about really effectively. So I was questioning why he came off at halftime for Dani Ceballos. I'm assuming it may have been injury related, because performance, he was arguably Arsenal's best player. But Villa did win that battle in the midfield throughout the game, and there were sustained periods of pressure for 15, 20 minutes by Arsenal, especially in the first half, where they had a few chances. But it was Trezeguet again who stood up, made himself counted for, Dan, appeared at the back post as he always does, and obviously the ball came off Saka. Unfortunately, Trez can't claim that one. Dubious goals department not allowing that. But it was really important as well, because it would have been so easy for Villa to have lost the confidence after the goal getting disallowed. But, we kept at it, Dan. It was a brilliant run from target. He held the line well, put it to the back post, and Trez is just always going to be there.
Yeah, well, look, it was really nice. Arsenal were growing into the game by that point. And I like what you say there about Thomas Partey, because I feel like when he was brought into Arsenal, and because Arsenal had sort of been hunting for a 6 for a few years, he kind of got labelled with this sort of destroyer tag. Like he was at the sort of a base of a 3, breaks up play, sort of a Casemiro type. He's not. He's far more elegant like that. He's a brilliant two-way midfielder, and he was showing that. McGinn almost laid on a very tidy assist to him.
Yeah.
Just after that call, and it was almost a real 0-0 moment for John. But Emmy was quick on that one, and I think the Emmy angle is something we do need to touch on a little bit later. But the goal was really nice. It quickly became apparent that we would need to be effective on the counter if we were going to get anything from that game in the first half, anyway. Because Arsenal were starting to grow as the home team and started to dictate and control the midfield. And we broke. And what's interesting was this was a real... I think it's useful to compare last season's performance at the Emirates to this one, and the things that were different in each. And so one of the things that I picked up on was the decision-making, which really let us down, because we only scored 2 goals in that, the last season's game at the Emirates. We conceded 3, which is a whole different issue, but we could have scored so many more.
Yeah.
The decision making at points was really poor, and we broke away. And Grealish and Barkley, we waited for the right opportunity. Target makes an inside run. It's a really nice ball slipped into him, and that feed across the box is just begging for someone to get in. I mean, even the end, Bukayo Saka couldn't resist getting on the end of it. That's how good that cross was. It's Trezeguet's goal, by the way. I know Bukayo Saka touches it in. I know it's legitimately an own goal, but obviously, literally sitting here with Karambu on, I'm gonna call that Trezeguet's, because the least he deserved tonight was a goal. And there's so much I want to talk about on this podcast, but just quickly, Trezeguet's performance was absolutely amazing tonight, and it's just yet another demonstration of how much he's come on in the last few months. He not only, it's not even like he's improved, he looks like a completely different player. And I actually tweeted this off the account. He's now legitimately deserving of being called Trezeguet. I now think he's parallel to David Trezeguet, who used to play for France, scored the winner at the Euros, that peak sort of I was like, how, last season I was looking at me, I'm like, Dan, you're doing David Trezeguet dirty. You can't reference yourself as this them, but no, I'm going he has stepped up to the plate and is performing on a level that I think is really setting the tone for Villa at the moment. I think how hard he works is really, a benchmark for all the other players to live up to. And I think they're doing that. And what won't get talked about is there was a moment in the first half where Bellerin drove in from the right wing and put that ball across. It went past Target, went past Mings, and then there was Trezeguet out of nowhere, underneath Concert and Cash, to dribble the ball out of the box. He's going to get all the plaudits for what he did going forward tonight, but Trez put an absolute shift in, and it was a great goal, and it's such a shame that it won't be awarded to him.
Absolutely. You've got to be in it to win it, and that's what, it counts for Trez. That's all I'm saying. Def, taxes, Trezeguet at the back post.
Good tweet. Good tweet.
He knows he's I don't want to say look, but if he occupies the space so intelligently, and it's I don't want to criticize any other players in any other position, but that's a real kind of actual centre forward mentality, not necessarily a winger. They don't necessarily have that killer instinct all the time, especially if dare I compare Trezeguet to Mane, Salah, players like that who are these interchangeable kind of inside forwards. They have that killer instinct, and we're seeing Trezeguet develop that, and it's really good. And listen, after the first goal, Dan, I don't want to say it could have gone both ways, but obviously Arsenal had to come out and with a response, and there was a few chances, there was a few balls put into the box, eventually dealt with well by Villa. Going into the half-time at 1-0, it was massive because, especially if we put that into context with how poor the last, let's say, 120 minutes against Leeds and Southampton were, for Villa to be leading in this situation is very, very important. And the second half did not disappoint. Instantly came out, set the tone with a high press, keeping Arsenal's defenders pegged in their own half. After that, they kind of came into the game a bit more. But what's impressive, Dan, as well, is obviously, as we alluded to earlier, Ceballos came on for Partey in that midfield at halftime in the first switch. And then they make a double substitution at around the 70-minute mark. At this point, we've said on the podcast before, we've criticised Dean for his substitutions and that. But Villa were playing in a way where we'd forced Arteta to play all of his cards. His chips were down, his cards were on the table, and Aston Villa still found a way of overcoming what is arguably a superior side. You look man for man, pound for pound, which if the Leeds fans are listening, please don't get triggered. This Arsenal squad is obviously going to be miles and miles better and ahead of Aston Villa's. But we responded in such a way, Dan, and even when they did make them two changes, we saw Pepe and Nketiah come on, and there was a sort of sustained pressure for about 15, 20 minutes. Villa ended up riding that out. And for me, I think that's what's probably even more important than the fact we scored the 2 extra goals.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. I think one thing that I was really impressed with was we defended really resolutely, and we had this really nice 4-4-2 setup when we were defending, whereas the 2 was Grealish and Barkley. Ollie dropped into the left, Trez was on the right. You then had Duggan and McGinn, and it was so well drilled. One thing I'd be really interested to look into, and it's a shame we're not recording this, we're obviously recording this on the night of the victory. One thing is I'd like to look into when all the stats get published and stuff, once they've all been calculated, is the sort of average pass direction and the amount of forward passes by each team, because Arsenal could not break us down. And originally, I didn't actually think that Partey was an enforced change. I thought because Arsenal were just doing a lot of sort of crossing from deep, which is something that they're very good at. They're very strong on the wings, but sort of is a sign of desperation when you're not getting any luck through the middle. You sort of drop a little bit deeper back and try those crosses. And when you've got the front three that they do, it's a perfectly legitimate way of attacking. And it almost worked for Lacazette, who headed over at the end of the first half. But Arsenal couldn't break that down. And Partey for Ceballos was a change where I thought, okay, that's Arteta. Before I knew it was an injury, that's Arteta just trying to find someone who is perhaps a little bit better at splitting the lines, is a little bit more diminutive, more playmaker type, and would be able to pick the lock, so to speak. It was obviously an enforced change, but Villa was so resolute and we countered so well. And the second goal is just absolutely masterful. It really is. And I think Douglas won't get enough credit for his role in that goal, but the pick out, isn't it? The pick out from him to Barkley, and then the technique from Barkley is so difficult to watch that come over. He's got the I think it's Hector Bellerin right in his face. To watch that ball come over onto his left foot, hit that on the side foot, straight like an arrow, straight across goal. And then again, that is where you're going to find Ollie Watkins countless times this season, is in the 18-yard box, where it matters most. He's a great finisher, and he gets it over the line. And I was really happy for him because it's hard to say, but I sound hypercritical, don't I? But I didn't want the wait because obviously he's only scored in that one game, the Liverpool game, and was an amazing hat trick. So if you're going to do it in one game, do it like that. But I didn't want that wait for the next lot of goals to come too late. Like, I thought if he went another 90, he was pretty absent against Leicester. Then he wasn't great against Leeds. Then he wasn't great against Southampton. You're like, okay, like you need a goal now. And then bang, he comes up with that right place, right time. It was a brilliant goal, mate.
It really was, and it's so intelligent. And I tweeted this during the game. You get what you pay for, and the £33 million for Ollie Watkins is looking like a bargain as the minutes go by, especially with goals like that coming in quick succession. It's having, as you say, that kind of 18-yard box striker. That's what Villa need to take them to the next level. We had Wes, who was this, I hate to plague him with a label of a number 9, but that's ultimately the way we played. And at times we still do play up to Ollie Watkins, which we shouldn't do. We absolutely shouldn't. But a player like Wes, with his physicality, not necessarily as quick off the mark, he's going to, it's about positioning for him. And do you know what? It's the same with Watkins, but it's the runs he makes. It's the timing of the runs. It's knowing exactly where to be. And I think I've said this before, but that extra year in the Championship, playing centre forward for Brentford, has done him the world of good, because it may have been a year too early for Ollie Watkins last season to make that step up in the Premier League. He needed the 26 goals. He needed to learn his trade as a centre forward, which he still is very much so doing. But in that third goal, I think, for me, that just shows you how clinical the man is. The kind of the slide ball pass from Grealish after Bellerin tried to body him. The ball from Emi to set Jack up for the secondary assist is wonderful. And seeing Jack cruise down that left wing as he did in the last fixture, which set up big Wes, it was quite a similar goal in that respect. And listen, it was an instinctive finish. It's the kind of goal you look at and you expect Jamie Vardy to score something like that. The pass was on for Ross, but obviously he's a striker. He's going to take that on himself. We can't begrudge him for that. Scoring a brace. Hopefully he's in the team of the week. And I mean, he's just such a special player. I'm so happy Dean's got his man. We've got our man, and we've laboured this point so many times. But as you say, Dan, it's very easy for goal droughts to come. You've just got to look at who was, leading the line for Arsenal on the other end. Alexander Lacazette is a man devoid of confidence. Arteta has him in and out of the starting lineup, and to have him up front leading the line, listen, he's always going to be a threat. I wasn't too worried. He obviously had the one or two chances from the balls that were crossed in, but ultimately, with Ollie, we've got a player who is full of confidence. It's probably just as well he scored that penalty against Southampton as well, because as you say, you do get worried when strikers go on these goalless droughts. But I believe that's now his 6th goal of the season, which, definitely puts him in the upper echelons of top scorers. Obviously, at the moment, I think it's Vardy and Calvert-Lewin who are both on 8, which is, very impressive. So it's great to see that the English boys are doing bits near the top of the table in this weird season. And I just want to throw it back to you, Dan. Obviously, you alluded to earlier how Arsenal really struggled to break us down. And what's really interesting in looking at the statistics is Villa actually had less possession, which is always going to be expected when you're playing away from home. It's the passes, for me, that really highlight how effective Villa were, because Arsenal had 705 touches and made 535 passes throughout the full 90 minutes. And Villa, significantly lower, 376 passes with 544 touches. Now, Dan, that to me suggests that, one, as we know, Villa like to carry the ball that bit further, obviously with players like Jack Grealish, Ross Barkley, Trezeguet. We have dribblers in the side, but also, as you alluded to earlier, it's more efficiency from Villa.
Well, mate, you've only got to look at. Just remind me of how many passes Arsenal made.
Arsenal made 535 compared to 376 for Villa.
Well, way more than 500 passes for Arsenal, and all of those passes produced 2 shots on target.
Yeah,
that tells you all you need to know, mate. They had the lion's share of possession. I think 58.7% possession for the Arsenal tonight. 2 shots on target. Jack Grealish had 5 shots in the game. I mean, Arsenal, we just outworked them. We won 5 more aerials, 7 more tackles. We dispossessed them 7 times. It was to a man, the work rate was absolutely excellent. And I can't floor anyone. We were asking for the best John McGinn back. We got him. Yeah. And that's something that John McGinn, because Ollie Watkins is at the double, Jack was just a maestro yet again. All of these different things, the Emi Martinez angle, how good the back line was, it might get looked over, but John McGinn and Douglas Luiz were absolutely excellent tonight. And they really set the tone for that Villa performance in terms of how we countered it and the precision and how clinical we looked. I mean, Arsenal are this team which is managed by Mikel Arteta, who I think is well on his way to becoming an elite level manager. I love what he's done with Arsenal in such a short space of time.
Yeah.
And we've come into their backyard against this side, which is an emerging top 4 team, and played them off the park in every aspect. We worked harder, we looked more clinical, we were tactically better drilled, we were better defensively. All of these different elements, it was such a more complete and well-rounded performance than what Arsenal could offer. And I think that really bodes well. The challenge now is to do this on a consistent basis, which is a completely different matter. And we've got to remove the Leeds performance and the first half performance against Southampton from. We need to produce, and it's going to be so difficult. And I don't expect it, but I don't want to see this sort of up and down in the form tables. Like, we need to set a benchmark now. We know that we can play this well. We've seen against Arsenal, we've seen against Leeds, we've seen it against Fulham. We can go and play this well. We just need it regularly. And this was such a great performance, mate. And I loved watching it. And that third goal was really the icing on the cake. And now I can finally get my chance to, again, on this podcast, lyrical about Jack Grealish. I love doing this.
It's what the podcast is about, Dan.
For sure, man. For sure. Like, he picks up the ball in his just on the edge of his R area, runs virtually the length of the pitch, shrugs off Bellerin, which it says a lot because the strength of Jack Grealish doesn't really get talked about, but he shrugs off Bellerin, and then the weight of the pass into Ollie Watkins is superb, and then the finish is just unerring. It's magnificent from Ollie, but all the credit is going to go for that goal to Jack, and rightly so. I think right now he is the best performing player in the Premier League.
Absolutely. There's a case for the top 5 in Europe as well.
But definitely, mate. I'm not if you're talking on paper, all that sort of stuff, like you've got your Manes and De Bruyne's and they're in an elite band. But if you're talking a player who this season is performing on a game-by-game basis, who is providing goals and assists and dragging his team to victories, not victories, but to results, even in the games where we're not. Look at last week against Southampton, the performance he goes and puts in the second half, dragging Villa to what was almost a pretty remarkable comeback. I don't think there is a player in the Premier League that is performing, maybe bar Harry Kane, that is performing on such a regular basis as Jack Grealish is. And it's not like, we're playing minnows anymore. Like, he's going to the big boys now. He's going to the Arsenals and he's doing it against teams like that. And that third goal was just absolutely outrageous, mate. The boy just glides with the ball. It's another great assist, and my fantasy team is not doing very well at the moment, mate, I must say. But Jack Grealish on the left wing is keeping me afloat. So props to you. I had Ollie Watkins on the bench.
Of course,
you've got to put this. Wow, took him out. I thought Arsenal. I couldn't. To be honest, before kickoff, I didn't think we were going to get a result, mate. Benched Ollie Watkins, terrible decision. But I'm not even mad about that tonight. Jack Grealish, what a player! And that third goal was excellent.
Absolutely. And listen, it's hugely important that, huge result. We've got Brighton at home next week, albeit very lackluster game for them on pay-per-view against Burnley, a 0-0 draw. Brighton were probably deserved of the 3 points if they were available. Obviously, with Burnley, you know what you're going to get. They are relatively solid, albeit having a very poor season. But listen, Brighton are going to be very tough. The results haven't matched the performances from Brighton. It's going to be incredibly tough. And listen, I think Dan and I will come back with another podcast to break that down a bit more. This is more of a instant match reaction from the Arsenal game. And listen, Dan, I don't even want to ask you who the man of the match would be, because I think there's shouts for at least 7 players. Trezeguet was fantastic. Barkley was fantastic. It must have meant so much for Emi, especially after the comments that Arteta made in the week, saying, he doesn't regret the decision to sell him. I felt he was quite abrasive about that, considering Emmy is not only a former teammate, but, former being the manager. I just don't expect someone to kind of come out like that. Obviously, he's not going to say, oh, I regret selling him and that. But Emmy is definitely, walking off the pitch a very happy man. He's left. He's getting his regular football. He's kept a clean sheet against the club he's been at for over 10 years. So much to be happy about regarding Aston Villa right now, Dan. And obviously, we're sat 6th in the Premier League again. We're climbing back. We're above the likes of Man City. We're above Arsenal. We're only below Chelsea on goal difference. And that speaks volumes, Dan. And obviously, it's early doors. But here we are. We're doing bits. We are in Europa League position. That's a good note to end the podcast on.
Run that back. Run it back. I'll have that again.
The plane tickets. It's Spain next year for the Europa League. Get there. We're going to be there for the final. But listen, a fantastic performance from Villa. And Dan, as always, it is a pleasure speaking with you, especially when we have the delight of talking about a massive Villa win. But if you guys did enjoy this podcast, please do hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. If you are watching on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever your preferred podcast listening app is, please do leave a review because that really helps. And if you do listen to them, it'd be great if you could come onto the YouTube channel and comment that you listen on that, because it's great to see how many of you guys do engage and stuff on the different platforms. It helps us out a lot. The last podcast didn't do too well. I think that's because I think I released it at something like midnight, so that's my fault. But, a lot of you guys enjoyed it, so that's all that matters to us guys here at Heart of the Holte, that you guys enjoy what we're saying. Obviously, you don't have to agree with us. I'm sure there's still in the comments. We can't shake them off. But listen, here we are. If you did enjoy it, obviously subscribe, comment your thoughts below on the game, and stay safe, villains. Up the Villa.
Just as essential to fulfilling this got potential. It's the main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester. 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 He's the main leader of the gang now.